A man sprints across an empty field, and for a split second it looks like speed might save him. Then the low sky closes in, because in Ukraine, a small FPV drone can turn one step into a final mistake. This story is about that new kind of power, where a buzzing motor can replace a warning shot and force decisions faster than any radio call. Frontline footage shows Russian soldiers trying every human reflex at once, because some run, some freeze, some fire wild bursts, and some even try to strike the drone itself. Most of the time it does not matter, since the drone is already lined up before the shooter can steady a sight. The real shock is not the blast, but the message. Because once a position is spotted, it can be tracked, fixed in place, and hit again while people scatter. Near the Povsk sector, this pressure is starting to shape how men move, how vehicles risk the roads, and how morale holds under constant threat. Subscribe to World War History, because the next minutes break down how this low sky is rewriting modern combat in real time. Once the first drone appears, the next question is simple. What can a soldier do when there is no time left to react? FPV pressure matters because it turns basic human reflexes into losing options once the drone has already committed to the strike. In the footage, Russian soldiers react in several instinctive ways when a Ukrainian FPV closes in, because some sprint across open ground, some drop flat and hope the drone loses them, some fire bursts upward, and some try to swat or kick the device at the last second. Those choices look different on screen, yet they share the same problem, since the gap between detection and impact is often too short for aim, cover, or coordination. A person can run fast, but a small drone can adjust faster. And that is why speed alone becomes a trap instead of a solution. A person can lie still, but a drone does not need to be fooled by silence if it already has a visual line and a stable approach. A person can shoot back, but short bursts under stress often miss. And even a hit may not stop the mission if the warhead is already close enough to do its job. This is why the different reactions still end in the same result in many clips. Because the drone is not acting like a random threat, but like a guided strike that only needs one clean moment. The tactical lesson is sharper than the shock value, since FPV attacks force a brutal choice between moving and staying still. And both options carry a high cost once the drone is inside the final seconds. Movement can expose a clear silhouette against a field or a road. And it can also signal direction to the pilot, which helps the drone keep lead and close the last meters. Stillness can reduce noise, yet it also removes the chance to reach hard cover, so the body becomes the only target zone left for the drone to solve. That is why modern battlefield survival is starting to look less like bravery and more like timing, spacing, and control of exposure, even at the level of a single soldier. At the same time, it is important to treat this as a montage, because compilation footage can mix different days, places, and units, and the viewer does not always get independent location checks in the clip itself. Still, even without full geolocation, the repeated pattern is hard to dismiss, since the same sequence keeps appearing. The drone is spotted late, the reaction is instant, and the outcome is decided in a few seconds. In political terms, that pattern matters because it feeds morale on one side and fear on the other, and it can shape how commanders justify tactics, losses, and requests for more drones and more counter-drone tools. It also shifts the way the public understands the war, since a single short clip can suggest control, precision, and dominance, even when the wider frontline picture is more complex. When those factors combine, the most vulnerable person is not the one in a strong position, but the one who is separated from support and forced to face the low sky alone. When a soldier is alone, there is no cover plan, no buddy team, and no second chance. FPV drones are most lethal when a soldier is left alone in open ground with no team support and no hard cover. Many clips show single Russian troops separated from their group because they appear behind the line near a tree line or stranded in a wide field close to the fighting. In that setting, the drone does not need a complicated plan since the target has only a few basic choices, and each one exposes something. Open areas are dangerous for a simple reason, because there are fewer objects that can break line of sight and fewer places that can absorb blast or fragments. A running path is easy to read from above, and the pilot can lead the target like a moving dot on a flat map. Even small motions can give away position since a heddle, a sudden turn, or a sprint to the nearest bush creates a clear pattern the drone can follow. This is why the field problem is not just fear, but geometry, because the drone only needs a clear lane for a few seconds to close distance and strike. The key weakness is not only exposure, but isolation, because a lone soldier has no partner to suppress the drone's approach and no one to force the pilot to away. There is also no one to pull a wounded man into cover, so a hit becomes a final event instead of a recoverable one. When a group is present, someone can watch the sky while others move. But when one person is stranded, every task competes for the same hands and the same seconds. That is why the drone wins the timing battle, since the target must look up, decide, move, and shoot all while the drone keeps closing. This pattern often shows up in moments of disruption because withdrawals, broken routes, and vehicle losses can leave men scattered across open spaces. A unit that is pulling back under pressure can lose spacing, and one wrong turn can push a soldier into a field where there is no trench line and no planned fallback point. A vehicle hit can also create stragglers because some people dismount too early, some get separated by smoke, and some simply cannot find the rest of their element. Even without full context for each clip, the repeated theme is consistent because the targets are not in strong positions and they are not moving as a coordinated squad. From a policy angle, this matters because it changes how both sides talk about control. Since a few seconds of video can suggest dominance over an area, even if the map line barely moves, it also pressures commanders to adapt because the cost of leaving people behind grows when drones can patrol the gaps and punish any delay. The result is a battlefield that demands tighter control of movement, better spacing, and faster casualty evacuation since the open ground between positions becomes a hunting zone. When the fight reaches that point, the drone's job stops being only about hitting a man, and it starts being about breaking the rhythm of how forces move. The next step is even harsher. Hit the vehicle, force a scramble, then hunt the exit. The MTLB strike highlights how FPV drones can convert a moving vehicle into an abrupt choke point and then exploit that forced congestion to deliver a rapid sequence of follow-on hits. In the footage, a Ukrainian FPV hits a Russian MTLB carrying troops. And the first impact does not just damage metal because it slows the vehicle and forces an unplanned stop under pressure. That slowdown is the key moment since a moving target gives the crew choices, but a stuck target gives the drone team control over timing. Once the MTLB loses pace, the inside of the vehicle becomes a trap because staying mounted risks a second hit while dismounting exposes people in the open. The clip suggests the soldiers exit in confusion, and that detail matters because a rushed dismount breaks spacing and makes people cluster near the same side of the hull. For an FPV pilot, that cluster is an invitation since the drone does not need to search across a wide area and can commit to the easiest figure to track. This is a clean example of a simple chain. Strike the moving point first, create a choke point, then punish the human scramble that follows. It is also a reminder that an armored vehicle is not a single object, because it carries a rhythm for the whole group around it, including who follows, who covers, and who uses it as a reference line. When that rhythm collapses, the problem spreads outward. Since trailing troops hesitate, nearby teams turn to watch the hit, and any planned route can stall at the same spot. A stalled vehicle can also mark the area for indirect fire. But even without artillery, it becomes a visual beacon that keeps attention locked on one piece of ground. That is why the MTLB hit is more than a tactical win, because it creates a moment where the defenders can keep striking without chasing, and the attackers must react without a clear plan. There is also a psychological layer, since the sound and sight of a drone circling above a disabled vehicle can push people into rushed moves, and rushed moves produce patterns that pilots can read. The footage does not show every detail, so it is fair to say the exact sequence and damage level are hard to confirm from a short clip. Yet, the logic fits what FPV teams train to do. A warhead that disables a track, damages the engine, or shocks the driver into stopping can be enough, because the mission is not always to destroy the hull, but to force the dismount. Once troops are outside, they lose the partial protection the armor gave them, and they also lose the ability to move as one unit, because each person now chooses a different piece of cover. That moment is where FPV becomes a control weapon, since it shapes where people run, when they pause, and how long they stay exposed before they reach a ditch or a tree line. For viewers watching from far away, it can look like a small clip, but in operational terms, it points to a wider pressure on mechanized movement, because one well-timed hit can slow an entire push. When vehicles start to fear the open routes, resupply gets slower, evacuations get riskier, and commanders are forced to use longer paths that cost time and fuel. That is why a single MTLB strike connects to a bigger story. Because once mobility is broken, the battlefield shifts toward targeting the systems that guide and protect movement in the first place. After the vehicle is stopped, the next target is the network that tells units where danger is coming from. These attacks transcend individual engagements, systematically dismantling the operational infrastructure that sustains an army. The conflict is increasingly defined by the contest over surveillance, secure communications, and precision fires, rather than by brute force of numbers alone. One recurring clip captures a Type 63 multiple rocket launcher, or closely related variant, being detected and destroyed by a Ukrainian FPV drone. Beyond the obvious loss of metal and tubes, this strike eliminates a system designed for rapid, high-volume rocket barrages, capable of saturating a sector, suppressing infantry, freezing vehicle columns, and dictating the pace of local fighting. Its removal produces cascading effects well beyond the impact site. Diminished capacity for sudden, overwhelming fire that disrupts advances and forces hesitation. The choice of such targets reveals strategic intent. Operators are prioritizing systems that govern the rhythm of battle rather than settling for the nearest visible soldier. This reflects a deeper truth. On today's battlefield, the value of command nodes and enablers frequently outweighs sheer headcount. The same deliberate logic appears in strikes against UAV communication antennas and relay stations. These are precision attacks on the nervous system, linking forward observers, fire directors, and drone pilots. When an antenna falls, target data arrives late, corrections become sluggish, accuracy suffers, and units operate with degraded situational awareness for extended periods. Even if drones remain airborne, a compromised network forces pilots to accept greater exposure, flying lower or closer to maintain control. This is far more than equipment destruction. It is a sustained assault on the speed and reliability of the decision cycle, directly undermining the ability to act first. Subsequent footage extends the danger envelope into domains once considered comparatively protected. Russian military boats transiting open sections of major rivers and small detachments moving on motorcycles across exposed routes. On water, boats possess minimal concealment and constrained maneuverability. Once acquired visually, possible escape routes shrink dramatically, becoming almost trivial for an FPV pilot to anticipate and intercept. Rivers naturally constrain movement into predictable channels, allowing the operator to establish a clean lead and close without constant guesswork. On land, motorcycles offer velocity but require forthcoming cover to be effective. Many routes traverse wide open fields, barren plains, or arrow-straight paths that are glaringly obvious from altitude. These images demonstrate that even routine logistics dashes, rapid repositionings, or reconnaissance patrols now incur serious risk. The FPV threat has migrated beyond static frontline trenches to stalk the logistical lifelines and rear areas. This broader exposure fundamentally alters planning for ammunition delivery, casualty evacuation, and small-scale raids, compelling both sides to devote substantial resources to countering low-altitude threats. Flat, open geography intensifies the vulnerability. Riverbanks and step-like approaches offer few natural visual screens, rendering any boat, rider, or vehicle a distinct shape against a featureless backdrop. Once located, choices narrow quickly. Reversing direction simply re-exposes the original track, while continuing forward often leads into even more exposed ground. Politically, these clips project an image of spatial dominance, even when the actual line of contact remains fluid. Although exact coordinates are rarely verifiable in montages, the consistent selection of targets points to a maturing tactical pattern now diffusing across multiple sectors. When every road becomes a potential kill zone, survival requires trading speed for concealment. The footage repeatedly illustrates how even agile light mobility assets falter under persistent FPV pressure, compelling soldiers to abandon transport and depend on natural folds, vegetation, or shadow for protection. Commanders must continuously reassess routes, movement windows, dispersion patterns, and the acceptable risk of any observable displacement in an environment of constant overhead scrutiny. This is also why the political dimension cannot be ignored. Drone production rates, operator training pipelines, component supply chains, and international export policies now exert influence over frontline outcomes comparable to that of conventional military doctrine. The central question remains stark. Which side will first disrupt the detect-to-strike sequence? And can modest, low-signature movement corridors endure in this environment at all? Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to World War History for continuing clear-eyed coverage of evolving weapon systems and real-world battlefield adaptation.